The return of Armando Abrego Garcia from El Salvador last Friday matters. But does it matter to Judge Xinis in Maryland? Is she going to then just wave a magic wand and act like Donald Trump and his administration were not in contempt of court for going on 3 months since April? Is she just going to ignore that for contempt purposes, or is she going to hold them in contempt now that a new motion has been filed related to it? We break all that down for you and bring you up to speed the only way we know how, without blowing smoke or sunshine, on Legal AF. Here's a clip. We were talking during the commercial break about some funny things that are popping up on the dockets these days. The way electronic dockets work for courts, there's things that we can all see because it's a public justice system. We're supposed to be able to see federal filings and criminal court filings. There's certain things that are protected. Grand jury proceedings for the duration usually are protected. Witness statements, that type of thing. Some are redacted and sealed because of privileges and state secrets and all sorts of things. And other things, it's a scale. So over time, the need to continue to protect them from the eyes of the public is less, and the judges will start stripping off the black tape and the redaction. And we'll get transcripts of things that get filed with the court so that we in the public know what the heck just happened. And there was just a filing in the Abrego Garcia case, where we had heard it at the time, in which a lawyer for the Department of Justice looked a judge in the eye, Judge Xinis, who we're going to talk about next, and said, yeah, Donald Trump may be the president may be a master of communication, but sometimes he's not precise in his language, basically admitting that Donald Trump doesn't get his facts straight, which of course we all know. What works outside the courtroom to pressurize our justice system doesn't work on the hallowed grounds of the court system usually. So I just thought that was sort of funny. Why don't you pick up with updating the audience on the Abrego Garcia, the return, that indictment, and what's happening with Judge Xinis, who has to make a decision about contempt proceedings.
Yeah, so there's two cases, right? There's a civil case, which is in front of Judge Xinis, that was going to essentially hold the Department of Justice in contempt. It was starting to look like, based on them basically taking Abrego Garcia to El Salvador and admitting that it was a mistake, that he wasn't supposed to be taken. And, they were saying, oh, we can't take him back, we can't get him back, or, they were not really trying very hard, but they were supposed to facilitate his return, but claimed that they couldn't do it. But then they'd refuse to say what they did to get him back. It was really clearly thumbing their nose in the face of Judge Xinis, who reads the paper and social media and can see exactly what they're saying publicly, which was different than what was saying in court. And I think we all thought Judge Xinis was getting very close to holding them in contempt, and they didn't even try to bring him back, right? So what do? I think to save face, they build a criminal case against him so that if they do bring him back, they can slap him with actual criminal charges rather than bring him back and have him lawfully stay here, which an immigration judge specifically said he could. They specifically said that he was not illegal when he was here. And so they basically created this criminal case and indicted him in federal court in Tennessee. And they're accusing him of being a human smuggler and a human trafficker, essentially. We'll see if this case actually will ultimately stand, if there is any merits to it, if he is a human trafficker / smuggler of bodies. The allegations are that apparently he, years ago, he was stopped in a traffic stop, and they say in the indictment that he was conspiring to transport illegal aliens. They say it was a 9-year conspiracy. P.S. The chief of the criminal division in Tennessee resigned in protest because of this. So that always makes me suspicious of a prosecution. If you've got a prosecutor literally giving up their job because they are protesting against something fishy is going on there. And Ryan Goodman, who is a professor and a legal commentator, and he works for Just Security, he looked at the actual report when there was a traffic stop because essentially what they put in the indictment is that they rely on this traffic stop from a few years ago in Tennessee, and they call it out and they say that he lied because they say that he said he was in St. Louis on his way to Maryland. And they say that's the lie covering it up because they can tell from license plate readers that that particular car was actually in Texas. But Ryan Goodman looked at the actual police report that was filed, and in it, the officers say that, quote, that Abrego Garcia said, quote, "We are coming from Texas." That's in the contemporaneous report. Okay, so I don't know. It seems a little fishy to me. It seems like the charges aren't necessarily that strong or going to stand. Either way, it seems like they were created just so that they can save face and bring him back and say, see, he was a criminal anyway, and we were deporting criminals. Either way, and it was very predictable that, and by the way, let's just say one more thing that really offended me, and then we'll talk about Judge Xinis in the civil case. What really offended me was Todd Blanche, who's the number 2 at the Department of Justice. He was, if you remember, he was the lawyer who represented Donald Trump in the case at the Manhattan DA's office where Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felonies. He was the lead lawyer in that case. Well, now he's the number 2 at the Department of Justice. And he actually tweeted the arrest warrant, okay, for this Tennessee traffic stop smuggling case. He tweeted the arrest warrant and said, "Welcome home." That to me is just really, really undignified of a high-ranking person at the Department of Justice, frankly, any government official, but somebody at the Department of Justice, that they would mock somebody like that and issue something like that via tweet. I don't know. It just, again, is one more example of what I was saying earlier about how I just don't recognize this Department of Justice. But either way, we talked about when we heard about this, Popok, we said, "Oh, I know what what Trump's going to say, what the government's going to say. They're going to say, oh, to Judge Xinis, we don't need you to rule on this anymore. We're bringing him back. It's not a live issue anymore. It's moot. You know, the case is mooted and you don't need to rule on this contempt proceeding." I think Judge Xinis is going to not only continue their proceeding and the fact finding and potentially hold someone in contempt for essentially lying, but I think the fact that they are able to actually bring Abrego Garcia back, the fact that the president of El Salvador is responding to a request from Trump to bring back Abrego Garcia. I think that's going to be used going forward with Boasberg and other judges who are looking at this about the people who are being squirreled away at CCOT in El Salvador.
There's no doubt in my mind that the very act of bringing back Abrego Garcia proves the point of the contempt. They had the power all along. It's like a Godfather movie. It was Barzini all along. They always had the ability to bring him back, and they chose instead to taunt Judge Xinis, taunt senators, taunt the United States Supreme Court, both in social media posts and in court filings, and to tell the judge to pound sand, play cat and mouse with the court. She used that term, that she felt like they were playing cat and mouse with her, and pulling the yarn away from her at the last minute. And she is on the cusp of finding them in contempt. And just because they brought him back under a alleged criminal case that wasn't even started until March, after they were already in contempt. I mean, the Supreme Court ordered them to facilitate the return or the release from the El Salvadoran prison starting on April the 10th. The fact that on May the 21st you indict for calling him a human smuggler in order to give you cover to then ask for, so suddenly now Bukele in El Salvador is going to respect it. They didn't do an extradition proceeding. They didn't do a formal extradition proceeding. They just said, Pam Bondi said, yeah, we told him, we showed him the indictment, and they released him. Yeah, that whether it was a email, phone call, diplomatic immunity, nobody believes that Donald Trump was powerless to get Bukele, if he wanted to release Abrego Garcia. And his return now what the Trump people file is, it's all better now, Judge. We brought him back. He's in Tennessee. He's in federal detention, but he's back. So your whole case that you were presiding over is moot. We're done here, right? No. There's the 90 days that he wasn't here. It's the fact that he's still not in front of her, that the due process rights have yet to be given to him as it relates to his having left the country. Their argument is, no, we're beyond that. We're in a post-deportation removal world now. Now we're gonna get a conviction, and then we're gonna remove him based on the fact that he's a criminal convicted in America. First time he'll ever be convicted if that were to happen. I think they have a good argument to get that case kicked on a motion to dismiss. There's some very good judges there. But the filings that I read coming on the air, there's competing filings by the Trump administration, which is telling Judge Xinis, nothing to see here, dismiss your injunction, contempt is over, stay the case. And the Abrego Garcia lawyer is saying, are you kidding me? They've told you, and they've flaunted their power, they've taunted you, and they violated your order so many different ways we can't even catalog it all here. You should allow the motion for sanctions to be filed, no more delays, and contempt to be found. And what is she supposed to do? She's got an order of the United States Supreme Court 9-0, not only telling her that she's right about due process, but telling her that she alone has the power to administer justice and make sure that habeas corpus rights and due process rights have been given to Abrego Garcia. And the fact that the other side says, well, we brought him back and we're not going to send him back now under the Alien Enemies Act, and that doesn't solve the problem at all. And she's going to have to make sure that her orders are abided by, the Supreme Court's orders are abided by, and this ruse is rejected. So I think any day now, Karen, we're going to get an order from Judge Xinis that says this doesn't change anything. And we are going forward with the contempt proceedings and the briefing schedule that I've already set. What do you think, Karen?
I think it's possible. I think you're right. I think it's possible that does go forward. I was sitting here thinking to myself, will Abrego Garcia have a cause of action against the United States government for making this mistake? And part of what is developed in this civil proceeding would be used as discovery in any civil proceeding. And it's just interesting because obviously there's immunity issues too, right? And prosecute, there's immunity issues in play that will also occur for the people that the Department of Justice individuals that they would sue. But a lot of discovery that could be developed here, and it's just interesting because I think if he has a contempt cause of action, he might have a civil cause of action against the United States government too, potentially.
Yeah, I love that analysis. That's really smart. Welcome back. The full-length podcast runs an hour. It's on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, only on the Midas Touch Network. And then we rebroadcast it over here on Legal AF, which we do in collaboration with Midas. We put together the best in legal and political commentators here on Legal AF. If you like what we're doing here, hit the free subscribe button. If you like what we're doing over on Midas Touch and with the podcast, subscribe to the podcast on audio podcast platforms, download it, tell your friends about it, because we could use a few more audio downloads, to be frank, and also watch the video version of it. We are right now the #1 law and politics podcast on YouTube rankings, and that's all because of our fervent support by people in the audience like you. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.